Okay, welcome back. I have some important details to discuss regarding this, which is that I actually preached two messages this Sunday, both connected to the same idea. One was following Josiah's path and others biblically. The other was following Elisha's journey after Mount Carmel and finding himself under the broom tree and what God spoke to him and did. Both are covering the topic and the idea or the theme that we were made for generational expression, that God moves and does things beyond just our life and moment, and that when he moves, when he speaks, when he does things, it goes beyond that. So for this video, what I'm going to be focusing on is Elijah's journey, and it has him after Mount Carmel, being threatened by Jezebel. Remember, fire comes down from heaven, incredible miracles, threatened by Jezebel, and it leads him into a space of discouragement and believing he's alone. God does a couple of things there that are important for us to understand. One, God breaks the lie that we are alone and isolated, and God speaks to him in a very unique way. So God had formerly on Mount Carmel come as fire, and then in that moment of discouragement, God brings wind, God brings an earthquake, fire, and God wasn't in any of those things, as it talks about. But in fact, God was in the low whisper. And so God will show up in your life in different ways, and there's a reason. And that in that moment, one of the things that was happening was God was doing things in the still and the small voice that couldn't be achieved in the grandiose displays of fire, earthquake, etc. So when God is moving and speaking in whisper, he's doing something in intimacy. He's doing something in cultivating intimacy and connection that can't happen in the big things. So the leadership that God has in his life at this point is for Elijah and for us to hear the way God's speaking and moving that might be different. What he speaks to us at that moment is really important. He breaks the lie of isolation and loneliness in the low whisper, in the still small voice. There's things in intimacy that are happening we have to pay attention to. He leads Elijah to anoint kings and or prophets at that time. And so when God breaks the lie of isolation and loneliness, he leads us to do in that new space what we would never do if we believed we were isolated, which is to impart, anoint, and give. And God works in this way because God works beyond just us. For Elijah, Mount Carmel was an amazing moment, but it was also just him. It was a showdown of him and many others, and or him versus many others. And so that's an isolated, individualistic expression, but God moves now Elijah into a different space, to hear him in the whisper, to move to anoint people and to raise up voices that would govern, be kings, and to raise up voices that would be mouthpieces after him. This is how God works. He works in the individual, but he also works through the individual, because God doesn't just work in a specific lifetime or generation, but he works over the arc of many, many, many generations. And it's important for us to obey God and to hear his word and to be obedient to what God is establishing, even if it won't be for our best or our betterment, but would rather create a more eternal expression or a more generational expression. Investing in God's plan is investing in something that is not just for our lifetime, but is for the lifetime of many to come. Love you guys. Be blessed.